Hey, welcome everyone. Sorry we're getting off a little late, but let's wait one more minute, see if we have anyone else joining us. How are you feeling, Samantha?
I'm good. Yeah. Good to be inside.
Yes, I'm right in front of my AC and I feel great.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. I know I recognize some of the names in the attendees, so thanks for joining me again. And if you're new, welcome and hello. My name is Samantha, and I'm delighted to meet you.
Awesome. Yeah, so we can get started. This is being recorded as well, so we'll be able to put this up on YouTube later for anyone who might be missing the intros. But just to give an overview of everything, hello, my name is Annie. I'm the program director and artist in residence with Sicily Artist Retreats. So to give an overview of what we'll be doing today, I'm gonna talk very briefly about Sicily Artist Retreats, who we are, what we do. I'm going to introduce Samantha. Samantha is going to give us a presentation on her work. She's going to show us her work, talk a little bit about what we'll be doing in her class in Sicily. And then we'll have some questions that we'll be asking her. And we'll open it up to the audience, all of you, in our last like maybe 10 minutes of the presentation. So if you have any questions, you can drop it in the Q&A. If you can't find the Q&A, just drop it in the chat. Like that's okay too. And yeah, we can get started. So just to give an overview of who we are, Sicily Artist Retreats is an international art school focused on contemporary realism and dedicated to excellence in painting, drawing, and sculpture. We're based in Western Sicily, and we host all-inclusive workshops with world-class instructors like Samantha, attracting students from around the globe. We started a couple of years ago, and we've been growing, and we're so excited to add classes like Samantha's, which is Expressive Pastel Drawing, which is also pretty exclusive of a class. I didn't realize that until, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It actually, when I started teaching post-COVID, back in the studio, I initially was approached to teach pastel and figure, and just over time, I think they're both really challenging, pastel and figure. So I've broken it down more in my local classes to figure drawing and painting, and I teach art history, and I'll be teaching actually ballpoint pen drawing coming up. So different things, but yeah, it's just the way that the last few years have gone. I don't teach my own personal style. It's a little bit more broad for my in-person classes here. So it's been a while. It's been a while since I have even considered teaching my sort of personal pastel techniques rather than more exclusive or more specifically or generally, I would say figure skills. So
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky to be able to host that. And for anyone who's already signed up or thinking of signing up, I'd say this is a really great opportunity to work with Samantha and get to know how you go about this style. So yeah, I'd love to get into it and see some of your work.
absolutely. So yeah, as I said, I'm Samantha Stover. I went to the same master's program as Annie. We went to, not at the same time, but the New York Academy of Art. And before that, I had academic atelier training. So I did have, I think, a rigorous instruction in academic figure drawing, and it didn't really translate to what I wanted to see and draw when I got out of the student environment. So I I'll show a few examples, but I really had to spend several years taking the skills that I learned in academic training and changing them, twisting them, figuring out how to see the world as a moving, emotional place where I didn't always have control over the studio environment. So I guess I will get into that unless anybody needs a little bit more information about my personal biography. So I studied in Montreal, New York City, and after that I moved to Berlin, Germany. So my studio training was in Montreal and in New York. I took a little bit of a break from figure drawing. I was teaching children, so you know, different type of art classes. And
Different
when I moved to Berlin, I wanted to get back into figure work, and it was, you know, a great place with a lot of opportunities to explore the figure and go to life drawing sessions. And I found that, yeah, the skills that I had learned, which I will just name a few of the traditional techniques, was, you know, drawing in monochrome, drawing with graphite pencil, charcoal, drawing on a white surface, and a lot of the techniques of a sort of 19th century, almost photorealistic or Barg type of approach. And when I would go to open life drawing sessions, maybe there was not a direct light source, you know, light all over the room for everybody to be able to see, and no long poses. So, at first I was very frustrated that I couldn't draw as fast. I needed 6 or 12 hours. And I'll put one of my favorite drawings that I like showing, an old one, in comparison to the one that's here, which is recent. And I guess I'll also say that the drawings that I have to show, a lot of them I haven't posted online, or they've been blurry and in the background, and that is mostly because they're the horizontal ones. the landscape drawings don't read as well online or on Instagram if you follow me there. So just go over to the tile. So this was a drawing from before I attended the New York Academy. I did this drawing, and it, you know, I was happy with it, but and it's pretty messy now over the years. And you know, I was working with that sort of photorealistic representational style, and that drawing I think took 2 days, 12 hours. So and now what I see about this drawing, I see a lot of positive things, a lot of characteristics about something like this, but what jumps out to me now is that the proportions are off, and I cut off the legs in an awkward place, and I spent a lot of time filling in the color, and now, you know, a drawing that I do like this was a class demonstration, 20 minutes. So I just, when I started drawing again from life, I realized that I needed 12 hours, and I didn't have 12 hours to get things like weight, gravity, proportion, maybe a likeness.
1 second, Samantha.
Yes, sorry.
Could you, Zoom difficulties, could you have your speaker go to your drawings camera so that the Zoom camera goes there? Does that make sense?
So turn off my speaker on.
Yeah, on this one, and then put it towards the
Okay.
Uh,
We'll
sorry.
try.
Zoom gets us every time so that the image is large for everyone on Zoom. Thanks everyone for speaking up.
All right. Did that work? I'm echoing.
How does that look?
Okay. Is that working? It's still echoing. It's working. I'm getting the reverb.
And we're getting a bit of echo.
Is it working now?
Yes. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I think I have to put it back. Is it working now? Is it working now?
Can everyone see this? Can we get a yes in the chat or? Okay, I think we're good. I think I was able to spotlight this. Sorry, Zoom.
Okay, is my volume okay now?
Yeah, you sound great to me.
Okay, so yeah, so this was yeah, a drawing I did in about 2006 or 2005. And this is just what I mean by you know, a type of academic French 19th century photorealistic approach that it took me 12 hours to make an unfinished drawing. And not that I don't like this drawing, and not that you know, those skills were extremely important for me to learn, but I just realized that when you know, when I wasn't in a controlled situation where I knew that I was going to have perfect lighting and a black backdrop and a long pose, and you know, maybe have worked with the model in advance, and all of those pieces that, you know, allowed for me to take 12 hours to do a drawing, I no longer had when I started going to open sessions. And I never was trained in, first of all, in pastel or in fast drawing. So I was going to different life drawing sessions, and I realized that I needed to work faster. I needed solutions to basically make my, you know, make drawing easier and not harder, make drawing faster. And I thought that I, you know, after doing a master's degree, that I should be prepared for that. You know, I should have the skills to do that. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to synthesize the information into a very, very fast process. And I guess I sort of felt like, I don't know if anybody in the audience has seen the Disney movie Sleeping Beauty, but I felt a little bit like when the fairies they have to do the housework and the cleaning without their magic powers. They're like, why can't we just do it faster? I thought there must be something that, you know, that makes the work faster and quicker. And so I started taking notes and trying different things and then developing the way that I draw now. And that was when I started using pastels. And what the pastels allowed me to do was to have color, right? I was able to have 50 or 100 colors with me at all times. And I started using colored paper. And as a student, I did really enjoy chalk, and old master techniques of red chalk and chalk crayon and charcoal, white chalk. But I had some training in painting as well. But when I realized that I see the world in color, and I don't know, maybe most of us do, that eliminated the step of needing to translate the world into tonality or monochrome or black and white, however we want to describe it. So that was one of my first sort of realizations, that if I eliminate some of the steps that I was used to in drawing, then I could save time and I could draw faster and I could draw those shorter poses, which are, inherently, we have fantastic models. I've always had, have worked with fantastic models, and I know the model who will be at Sicily Artist Retreats is also amazing. But just inherently shorter poses are more dynamic, they're more difficult to hold. And what I also realized was that when I go to the museums or when I look at work, what I love to see are those, impossible twists. I think, Michelangelo's and Renaissance drawings, like the things that I loved about traditional work, I wanted to capture more of the structure, more challenging points of view, overhead or from below, more what I would even call a no minutes pose. When I see masterpieces, it's often, the capturing of a fleeting movement, maybe a hand gesture or somebody about to speak, or something with arms raised, or and there are oftentimes poses that really couldn't be held for more than a few minutes. And even when I would look at the short poses that models could, a lot of the 5-minute poses I can't hold for 5 minutes, so that was also something that was really inspiring to me, that I had to practice more of and become more efficient. So yeah, I think in a very short time of trying to retrain myself, the way that I started drawing became sort of increasingly fast, and that required for me to sort of give up the things that I liked to control in previous drawings, and then to learn to control different types of skills or techniques, or to go into a drawing with a different idea of what it was that I wanted the outcome to be. So yeah, I don't know if that's enough, if I should answer some questions on any of that, or just keep going. I do have quite a large stack of drawings here. See that there are.
Yeah, I'd love to see some more.
Sure. So I'll just flip through a little bit. So as I said, this was one of my demonstrations, and I do particularly like this drawing. I put it on top because it has, for anybody who's taken my class before, my little diamond proportional grid, which I find super helpful. And that's something that I'll teach in Sicily, of course. But one of the other sort of secrets that I figured out was that I let the paper do the work for me. So that was one of those, like I say, fairy magic types of tricks, was that, well, I don't need to spend 12 hours coloring. And what I call coloring is what we'd call rendering or modeling or filling in the tone. If I stopped, if I don't need to fill in the tone, I don't have to do the work. Paper does the work for me. So, you know, so that was just one of the strategies that that I started using more and more frequently. So it's not a horizontal drawing, but a vertical one. So that's it. Get it. Also, you know, getting more challenging perspectives, more foreshortening, more overlaps, things that we don't always have with an academic long pose. So 20-minute drawing, another 20-minute drawing of in the same day, same model. You know, less concerned maybe with the portrait, but still concerned with getting hands and feet and a completed gesture. Oh. They're all from the same day. So
Samantha, I know that we want to do some Q&A for later, but we have some questions that I feel should be answered in the moment. One is, what do you mean by more overlaps?
foreshortening and things like, you know, not being able. So a lot of what I learned in school and also what I teach in figure drawing is the proportions of the head to the rib cage to the pelvis are very good proportional landmarks, and you know, for getting accurate anatomy. And when you eliminate the ability to really see the rib cage and the pelvis and even the shape of the head in a sort of vertical or seated position where they're clearly defined, then you have to work with overlaps. You have to work with more foreshortening, and that's it's challenging. But I think that it when I would look at a pose, I would say, you know, think that's a really interesting pose. I have no idea how to draw that. Because things were not, you know, oriented in a way that I was used to seeing. So, you know, how do you draw a person upside down? and this is something that, you know, in my class exercises, I love to challenge that my own students with some upside down poses and foreshortening and reclining poses, because they're, you know, it takes a different type of structuring and what we call blocking in the form than a standing pose or a seated pose. Does that answer the question? Thank you for your comments. I see.
Oh, there's another question. How long would you say you spent on each of these drawings?
All of these past drawings have been 20 minutes maximum.
Wow.
20-minute pose. That's it. 20 minutes maximum. And I have a cute thing that I say. I can usually tell how fast my drawings are, not only by, you know, the order that they're in my portfolio and the paper that I use, but I try to use a color a minute. So my 1-minute drawings are usually with one color, and my 3-minute drawings, I usually have light shadow and a middle tone. And my 5-minute drawings, I'll start developing flesh tones and a 10-minute, you know, and so I'll know that, and, you know, hopefully we can see, but I think I can count. I've got, you know, yellow, I have an orange, I have a pale, dark blue, light blue. There's some green. So there's probably at least 6 colors here. Maybe I kept it minimal. But yeah, I know these, usually my drawings on this type of paper in this size, these are all 18 by 24. are, and I just remember because I remember being there. I remember this day. I remember the model. That's, you know, another thing that I do like to include, or that I felt like I was missing in my drawings before, was a memory of the sense of space or atmosphere. And that could just be because of a color. You know, it could just be because of the drapery, or not even the drapery, but maybe something that that model was wearing that day, maybe what I was wearing that day. And the inclusion of, you know, just some of those colors gives, at least gives to me, more of a description of where I was that day. So I remember, I think most of the drawings that I do, even if I don't have a portrait likeness, I know exactly who that person was that I was drawing. So
Infusing that feeling of a space and that lived environment, that's what really like breathes life into your work too, you know, and like it's certainly felt like I feel that with your work.
so yeah, and it also was inspired by my time in Berlin, that I would go to so many you know, open life drawing sessions, and I would have no idea what that room was going to look like, if it would be a costumed model, you know, if I would be drawing clothes and drapery, and, you know, needing something that just a pencil or a pen wasn't going to get me drawing very fast. So having the paper work for me. So so in this example, this paper, the color is showing up a little bit more skin tone. It's sort of a sludgy green. It's not as green as this, but it's a little bit more olive than the camera is picking up. But working on a skin tone paper, or a somewhat, you know, it's much darker than my skin tone, but having a paper that already includes the colors that I know that I'm going to be using, because it's what I'm looking at, does the work for me. So sometimes I'll use I love red, and I do think that there's red in all of our flesh tones. You know, so sometimes I'll start with the red because I know it's there. You know, I know it will be there. I know that I will have to use a red. And so if I start with a red piece of paper, I can take away the step of including the red in my pastel palette. So that makes sense. And in this one, you know, working on a skin, you know, some sort of a neutral mid-tone, I don't have to build up as much of the light and the shadow because it's already halfway there. And here's probably a better example. There's almost nothing, you know, it's only that little bit of orange. There's no chalk here. So letting that darker shadow of the kind of sludgy green create the tone of the shadow that I don't have to fill it in. I don't have to do the rendering. So
Yeah. Samantha, can we just go through more of your drawings so that we could just see more of your work? And then maybe before we get into more questions and opening it up to the audience more, we can hear a little bit about what you're planning on doing in Sicily.
yeah, so I also wanted to mention that, you know, one of the other thing I think I meant to say that there were, you know, two things that really got me inspired to change the way that I was drawing. And you know, a moment in my life when I was in Berlin and I was struggling and didn't really know how to make those changes. I did go to a painting workshop in Bruges, and that experience of being around other people and back in the studio, and it was a painting workshop where I was just auditing and I was there drawing, but yeah, being in a travel workshop absolutely is the life-changing moment when I went back to Berlin, renewed and refreshed, and I still keep in touch with all of, or most of the people I met there, and have visited them in their own hometowns, and but yeah, being around other people and seeing, you know, how everybody approached our experience differently gave me like a renewed interest to go back to Berlin and figure these things out. So I went back to Berlin. I made a group of friends. We started drawing together. I started going to more and more life drawing sessions. I just felt like the rut that I had been in was absolutely just, I was out of that rut. So a few more drawings. These are my probably 3-minute drawing, I would say.
Oh, wow.
I also know if I do multiple drawings on a page, they were the short ones. And I do also teach so these are more my sketches, but I do teach how to do multi-figure composition with a single model in a single session. So that's something that I would, you know, I do plan on teaching in Sicily, is how to create you know, spatial compositions with one person with different poses. So so this is a drawing I spent a little bit more time on, I know, because it's the better paper, the paper that's on my materials list for the workshop. So it's the sanded paper. And as you can see, I you know, I use the same materials, and the colors are much more vibrant, I think. Hopefully that comes across. So that may have been 220s, maybe 320s, but while I'm also teaching. So 20 minutes, I don't always. I know this was a 20-minute pose. Sorry, it's getting cut off a little bit, but so yeah, 20-minute drawing. Again, you know, this is the sanded paper, and using the red to say there's nothing here. It's just the paper. So allowing that red to be the color that I want it to. And this was another 20-minute drawing, and it's one of, I really like this one because it's one of these drawings that I draw over. So I had a drawing underneath that I didn't feel was worth the paper. And I like the heavier quality paper because I can keep working more and more into it. You can see there's, I think, a head upside down, figure underneath. So yeah, so I guess I would say about that I started to rely less on having a contour drawing or making a detailed contour or a very careful contour drawing and filling it in, and instead working from how I describe it as the inside out, from different places of starting to develop a drawing. And that's definitely something that I go over in the workshop. So I have I just start drawings completely different than how I was trained to start drawings. And I think that also is something that I appreciate about life and people as well, as seeing things from the inside rather than blocking them or putting them inside an envelope from the outside and drawing in. I would rather a drawing manifest itself from within towards the outside. And I don't know if that makes sense without me giving a full lesson, but I do actually have a technique for making that happen.
Just to expand upon that a little more, do you mean starting from the inside out? So for example, if we're looking at this arm, you would just make that bold line for the arm rather than drawing the outline of the arm?
A little bit. I mean, that comes into it, but I do start with I start with three imaginary lines that are based in reality. And my students always ask me, do I always draw the three lines? I said, no, I just see the three lines, but I draw them for, for when I do demonstrations. And I can pull up one of those from the other pile.
Sure. And we have another materials question that I feel is important to answer now rather than in the Q&A. Whenever you're ready.
So just this is a drawing I also like. I mentioned upside down poses. When I was in school, I probably never thought I could draw an upside down pose, and I think that was a 5-minute, just 2 colors though. But so here's one of my class demonstrations without doing the type of things that I did as a student, where we carve out the outside and fill in the shadow shape. I don't know how many hours this took me, but it took a long time to draw this head from a statue, and this is a very, very good approach. I learned a lot from doing this, but as I say, I found that I just couldn't do this every time. I had to have other strategies in what I call my mental toolbox. So so one of my very fast demonstration drawings is on newsprint, and getting a sense of volume, gravity, structure, proportion, movement, and the gesture, hopefully the hands and the feet, all within the first minute, 3 minutes, and having an understanding of all of those qualities that I believe are traditionally and in a contemporary way important to developing a figure drawing, but instead of doing those things in successive steps down the line, doing them all at the beginning. So that's sort of my method. And then on top of that, then I can start building color and light and shadow, and maybe a background, the portrait. I know if I have more than 20 minutes, I can usually get a portrait. If I have 40 minutes, I can probably get a portrait in both hands. So saving those that time that a long pose would be to develop the more challenging parts of the human anatomy.
Awesome. Thanks so much for showing this one in particular too. Like, I feel like I'm seeing more of the scaffolding of how you build up, so it's very cool to see.
And I had another one. So I drew the block in, as we normally call it, and I lovingly call a block in a coffin, because it always looks like a coffin, and I kind of think, at least for me, it a little bit takes the life out of life drawing to put people in a coffin, or at least to start by thinking about that outside shape. And then so I didn't do this drawing with the coffin, obviously, at first. That was while I was talking, I said, if we get a standing pose and we put the envelope, or however you want to call it, I refer to it as a coffin, because that's usually what it looks like. So
I've never heard that before, but I feel it.
well, the other thing I lovingly say is that I love contour. I love a strong line, but when I start with it, I feel like I'm doing a chalk outline, and that's for when people have to go to the hospital. So
yeah,
not to disparage any other techniques or methods, because I have learned them, and they're always in my mind, and they're always useful in my mental toolbox. But when I'm outlining, I can't help myself from thinking it also is a little bit taking the life out of life drawing if I start that way, by really working on the outline. So it's like your coffin, and then your chalk outline. no. I felt like I needed a different strategy to make my drawings feel more alive. So I said I love the red paper. I do lots of drawing on the red paper. It's also 20-minute drawing. So were there more questions or?
Okay, I see we have someone with a hand raised, but there was another question about materials that I think might be important in this moment. So maybe we can answer the materials question and then I'll get to.
I love materials questions.
Okay. Someone asked, what do you mean by sanded paper? I think that's a great question.
So a pastel paper, well, pastels are loosely bound pigment with a binder. So usually that's some kind of a gum. And this is why soft pastels fall apart so easily, because they're just loosely bound with their binder. And a pastel paper will have a texture, a tooth, in order to grip that pigment. So some of the papers that I use is the Canson Mi-Teintes paper, and that has a little bit of a texture, but it's relatively smooth. It's sort of like a construction paper. Well, it's better than that, but you know, and a pastel paper, a sanded paper is the companies don't say what they put in them. I do have a special formula. This is Sennelier paper, but I have developed my own pastel surface preparation, which I think that we will have time for in Sicily to make some sanded pastel paper for the excursions, because on a sanded paper, not this paper, Sennelier paper, which I do like, and it's, you can hear my nails scratching on it, it's quite sandy. It does not like to be wet. But other sanded paper, you can apply pastels dry or wet. So there's you know, different combinations of materials that, and if you've seen my Instagram, maybe you've seen that I also draw on glitter. So describing a sanded paper, a glitter paper has that sandy surface.
Do you have any of those?
It's up there upstairs.
Okay,
But
next time.
yeah, please
Or
please check
Sicily.
my Instagram. I wore a sequin shirt for my glitter paper drawings, and you know, I love working on glitter. It's challenging, kind of throws the eyes, but I love a challenge. So yeah, the Sennelier paper is my favorite paper to work on when I don't take the time to prepare my own paper myself. I think the colors are beautiful, and I think what it the effect that it allows, it really amplifies all of the pastels. Even my hard pastels that I use that are not as richly pigmented, it still makes them brighter and more vibrant than other papers do. So, and that would be this.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. This is just in the interest of time and this is amazing. Definitely want to see more. Maybe we can look at a few more and then I can ask you some of my questions that I had, and then the questions that we have in the Q&A and in the chat, we can get to those at the end of the session. I just wanted to get to some materials questions while we have like some of the works directly in front of us. Yeah, so can we look at a few more and then I'll ask you stuff.
Yep, yeah, please. I can go through these and answer questions at the same time.
Actually, this is a great time to ask our first question, but maybe we can look through more of the work and give some folks time to think about this. Because this is a question for you, but I'm also gonna open this up to the audience. So how would you define your style? And I'd love to ask the audience how you would define Samantha's style, maybe in one word, in a couple of words. What comes to mind? So maybe we can look through a few, like you can flip through a few of them and we can give folks some time to think. And maybe in the next minute, we can start to populate the chat.
Yeah, I would love to know how the audience would describe my drawings, because coming from a very academic and traditional background, I'm not quite sure what I am or how I describe myself. But I do know that drawing in this way has always given me an absolute just sense of joy in sort of the human spirit and in observation and in being able to create effects outside of my academic background. I don't know. I maybe I describe myself as academic, and I know that's probably not the case anymore.
Gonna start to echo some of the responses in the chat. So we've got expressive realism. We have alive and vibrant, beautiful and emotive.
I mean, am I abstract? I'm not sure. That's something that and I'm not completely abstract. And actually I found this drawing. It might be hard for the camera to pick it up, but it's actually got sparkly pigments. It's a very, very messy drawing. But it's got those pearlized pastels in it. Very old drawing of a friend of mine. Didn't quite get that hand, but
I like that hand. Oh, we have more expressive, impressionism, emotive, beautiful, like friend. Michael, I see your question. I'm gonna save that for the Q&A a little later. Thank you all for sharing these. I think these are this is great to open up the question to Samantha now. How would you describe your own style? I know it's so hard to describe your own, and I feel like as artists we're constantly like in flux too. We're always kind of growing and expanding. And once you have your artist statement like perfect, then in a couple of weeks it's different, so how would you how do you go about describing what you do and what
well,
you
I guess one of the things that I would hope that comes across, and what has always been on my mind from the beginning, is getting more of a sculptural quality, even though most sculptures are not polychrome, not colored, but getting a sense of volume and mass and weight and maybe hopefully some gravitas. Even if I don't have a portrait or a full figure and it's cropped and it only took me 20 minutes or something, I would still, I'm always thinking sculpturally and three-dimensionally, and I guess those that I mean those two things somewhat interchangeably. And again, that was another thing that I realized about perception, is that I don't see in 2D. So to draw in a way that was somewhat photorealistic, that wasn't how I realized that I was seeing the world. That was a way that I saw other people's drawings, and I thought that it was fantastic, and I wanted to learn that. But then I just realized that I don't see that way. I see more. I see more three-dimensionally. This is another kind of interesting paper that I like. This is velvet, soft and fuzzy. It makes the pastels look almost like a magic marker.
how do you like velvet paper?
I love it. I love the velvet. It's so soft. But it's also grippy. So again, it captures that pastel pigment is a zoom drawing. Also over something else. Yeah, there's another figure and there's the feet down there. So I like playing with colored lights, of course. Little portrait. And yeah, and on this one, this is actually one of my drawings from that time in Berlin that I was talking about when I started developing new strategies and you know, using the dark paper. It says it 1 minute. So just, you know, starting to change completely the way that I was drawing, from using, you know, pencil on white paper, trying to be careful about my proportions, trying to be accurate, to really loosening up. So, but still trying to get a sense of light, shadow, mass, weight, gesture, perspective. So all of the things that I think were important, at least to me, in capturing a sense of the figure.
And is that why, that leads into my next question. So why pastels? Like, why continue to use pastels? And do you feel that this is your medium, like beyond, this is your preferred medium, even though I know you teach figure drawing as well, in graphite, and charcoal, right? But why pastel, and why do you keep coming back to this?
So so I started using pastels, as I said, because I did enjoy soft chalks, but I had never used them in this way as a student. And what I liked about the pastels, and I started using just these Prismacolor new pastel. And when I was first starting to use them, I would get the 48 set. And having 48 colors allowed me so much more possibility for the unexpected. You know, and of course, within a box, you get gray and black and earth tone and red. So, you know, I thought getting something like this is, you know, relatively inexpensive in terms of art supplies. And it fit right in my tote bag, so I could take this anywhere. And they can also be used wet. But I just found when I was looking for, you know, that magic, like in the Sleeping Beauty, of like, what's just going to do the work for me? And that was what I found solved a lot of problems in terms of drawing fast and getting a sense of light and shadow, or a sense of color, or a sense of movement, or having multiple basically edges or points with a stick form rather than a pencil. And I do still draw in pencil, and I love my ballpoint pen. So sometimes having a pointy stylus is just what I want to be doing, and painting. But the pastels really allowed me to sort of blend drawing and painting when I didn't know maybe what it was that I wanted to be capturing and communicating. And sometimes I still don't know what it is that I want to communicate until I am there in front of the easel, drawing from life, and, you know, understanding or getting an understanding of what I'm seeing and how I want my drawing to be perceived by other people. So pastels, the softness and the flexibility and the amount of colors, all of those things allowed me to work faster, and, as I say, easier, or just to have to spend less time to get the effect that I wanted.
Yeah, and like kind of capture all of what you were saying, like light and shadow movement, you know, and to do it quickly is, I think, really expressed well through pastels. I have a couple more questions and then we'll open it up to the Q&A. So thank you all for asking questions in the chat and the Q&A. We'll get to them. I just have two more, I think, pretty important questions for Samantha. So kind of the elephant in the room of we're looking at your work online and we're doing this over Zoom. So why can't you just teach us drawing online? Like, and why can't we learn pastel online? Or why do you prefer in person? However you want to approach that. I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Sure. So yeah, I've had a lot of inquiries on whether I teach online. You know, first for respect for our models. Even though there are some people who are okay with modeling online. But I don't, if you're familiar with my Instagram, I never show what's behind my easel. I won't show the, maybe I'll have the model clothed in a video, but I don't like to invade, the privacy of who I'm drawing, but that's that can be overcome. I also do think that I was Zoom drawing and I was organizing and hosting online life drawing for a couple of years. And I think that there's much to be learned from online life drawing. But I think that the things that I like to teach and develop and the things that I like to see with my real eyes are different in person, and partly that is color and space. Those are the things that I think are missing, or are not missing, but they are different in online sessions, either from a model on their own Zoom screen or from photo reference. I think that what I like to evaluate in real life is, my spatial sense of a person. One thing I often say in my classes, or I know that I've said repeatedly, is that I'm quite short, and I know that I mostly see the world from below. And that is a perspective, some of these you can tell are from a slightly from below, a worm's eye view. And I think that is an expression of how I see the world. It just, and I don't always take a slightly from below viewpoint, but when I can't control my place in the room, and I like to have the option of controlling my place in the room, whether I'm sitting on the floor, whether I'm standing. Sometimes in my classes, I'll sit on top of a ladder and draw from the back of the room. So I think having the ability to do that can't really be done online unless you have multiple cameras. And as we know, we started a little late because I was fiddling with mine. So it can be taught, but I really enjoy being around people in person and observing space and depth, and also color. As I wanted to also show my drawings here just with my phone. I have daylight coming in because we suggested maybe doing a slideshow, but you can see my drawings on Instagram. Sometimes the colors are a little weird. Sometimes you can tell the paper, from one corner to the other corner is a slightly different color, because it's very hard to capture color on camera. And some people, professional photographers, are much better at it than I am. But I do like to train my eyes, and I think that that's important as an instructor, to help train other people as well in terms of seeing color. Also as a form of expression, if that's what you're interested in, using color in its in an expressive capacity. So
Yeah.
I love teaching from life. I can't help it. I do work from photos, occasionally. There's nothing wrong with that in my mind, and I do copies at the museum, things, it's all tools in the mental toolbox, all of these things help um to build our own visual language.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I like what you said, like you're teaching us how to see. And, when you're doing something on a two-dimensional screen, like so much is compressed and you don't get that depth. And, I think that's really important for any artist, whether you do figurative work or abstract, like just having that kind of understanding is so crucial. And okay, one final question, then we'll open it up to the Q&A that we've been having a lot of questions going off in the Q&A, which is awesome, and I want to get to that. But one final question about Sicily, actually. So why, hold on, where's my question? Oh, why are we going to Italy for this workshop? Like, why can't we just teach this workshop in your studio? Why can't we do this in the States? Why are we going to Italy?
Well, because it's absolutely the perfect location for creating a memorable experience. So most of these drawings that I've been showing are done in, a bare studio white room. Let's see. We'll put this one. So back up. So I'm pretty minimal in some of my staging. Occasionally I'll put, a backdrop. But it's nice to get out of the typical classroom sometimes and have the possibility of drawing the figure outside or in historic architectural spaces and landscapes of pretty much of the things of my dreams. I've never been to Sicily, but the opportunity to have both. I know that in Sicily we will be working 6 hours a day in the studio, 5 to 6 hours a day, with the model in the studio, and also having the option of drawing from life outside in ancient ruins or over we've looked at a couple of different locations, and being able to take those same ideas of proportion, space, light and shadow, and combine studio figure drawing with something more like a plein air experience. I think it's there's no alternative to that. I mean, the Photoshop some ancient ruins into some of my drawings, but I think this is a really special opportunity to have sort of the best of both worlds. And I do also teach mythological character classes, and I'm very interested in that. And I think that being in a place, with that kind of narrative history will give us the opportunity to explore some of the mythological narratives in combination with figure drawing in the landscape that these stories were born. So I'm very excited about that.
I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on all of that and just see you take in Sicily and the way you're going to set up our model, like within certain locations. And it's going to be so exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. So
Yeah. just to be inspired by the colors of the world in a different place, you know, even if taking our vision from outside to our colors inside, you know, seeing the Mediterranean and the sunsets. And I just think, you know, I don't have a specific color palette, you know, I'm not formulaic in that way. So allowing the experience and the environment maybe to color the drawings as well, whether it's literal or in an abstraction, through an abstraction of the use of color. Just can't wait.
And I really appreciate what you mentioned before too, that you've participated in an international workshop as well, and it gave you kind of like a new life, like in your studio later on, and you made friends during the workshop and you were able to trade experiences. And I think that workshops like these, like they're true retreats, you know, and we're able to exchange information. We get to spend more time with you, and you get the opportunity to take all this in as the instructor and to share your wisdom with all of us. I mean, it's really going to be a once in a lifetime kind of experience.
Well, hopefully it's more than just once.
I do want you back. Yes, yes. Hold on. Sorry. You're right.
If this is a recurring experience, I think that would be also amazing to have, you know, to be building a community in that way as well, long term. But yes, it's absolutely art retreats and travel workshops are unforgettable. And I think they do just open us up to a little, they're more than what we get from our typical art classes, the one, you know, and even if that's just in terms of the unexpected. So being in a new space, meeting new people, seeing, you know, different perspectives, how other people approach their art, and getting new ideas, and things that you can then, you know, carry with you and take home in your mind and in your suitcase. But for you know, for that personal work at home as well, I think it just is very inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, like these kinds of practical techniques people are going to take home. And there's this one travel, it's like a quote on like travel and creativity. And it's talking about how when you step outside of your typical patterns of thinking, suddenly you're open to so much more. And it sounds like very simple, and it's like, well, yeah, of course. But I feel that anytime I'm kind of broken out of my day-to-day kind of mundane, yeah, just modes of creating even, you know? So I think something like this, we're able to just totally focus and take everything in, and yeah, allowing yourself to be cracked open to what the experience has to offer is just something I'm really excited for. I can't wait to see what you make. Can't wait to meet everyone who's going to join us. I'm just really looking forward to it. And I want to, unless Samantha, do you have any other things on that before?
You know, knowing the schedule, it'll be intense, and that is also something that, you know, is what workshops really offer, rather than like I teach weekly classes. I teach every day. Well, I teach 5 classes a week. So for me, it's intense, but it might not be as intense for each of my different groups of students. But being in a intensive workshop, I think is something that it changes the way that I think we internalize the information and instruction by having it so densely packed.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to, maybe we can start. Samantha, do you have a preference? Do you want to go to the Q&A first? Do you want to start in the chat? There's questions everywhere.
Just ask away. And I'll start.
Have the Q&A open first. So I have one question in the Q&A that says, Can these principles that you're talking about in your approach with pastels, can they be applied to non-figurative drawing as well? So like, for example, with landscapes?
Absolutely. I mean, there are different compositional elements in a landscape, and figure is particularly challenging because if something is off anatomically or off in a way that is not necessarily intentional, it comes across to your viewer a little bit more obviously, I would say, than in a landscape. In a landscape, something, a tree could be there or not there. But like in the first drawing that I showed, that I cut the rendering right off at the knees, that jumps out at me as I got no bottom legs. So there are certain things that are unique to drawing the figure, but I think that having a working knowledge or a mastery of the figure, it makes everything else seem easy. I would say, just because the figure also has, not that landscape doesn't, but a little bit more so. I think that drawing the human form, and especially if you, and this is not the best example, but if you do have a portrait and hands, then you have the addition of psychology and the gaze, which you don't necessarily have in a landscape, but I like landscapes with figures in them. So hopefully we can address that and in this workshop. So
Oh, thank you. Okay. I want to keep talking to you about these. Like, I want to keep expanding upon these. I'm like, wait, no, we have more questions. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to go to the next question, and continue this conversation in Sicily. So for someone who has never painted or been trained in art, do you recommend starting with pastels, or do you recommend coming to your Sicily workshop?
obviously coming to the Sicily workshop. I mean, it's hard for me to answer because I had been trained, as I said, and I chose pastels as a way to learn differently. So I like to think that I do have sort of both or multiple strategies, or that I have also condensed a lot of the things that I learned from my traditional training into new new techniques or new strategies, or I mean, yeah. And so I would say do both. Come to the Sicily workshop and also work with pastels. I don't know if that answers the question well enough, but that's, I think you have to, no, you don't have to do anything, but I think that it's good to get a sense of what interests you and to let yourself be surprised and to be confident and compassionate with yourself about you know what your interests are, and you might hate color. I'm not sure what it is, but as I said, I started noticing that as much as I loved monochromatic drawings, I also loved paintings in the museums. I love pastel drawings, and so starting to take a little bit more consideration of not just how I was trained, but how do I do it those other artists are doing? How do you get from drawing a standing figure for 12 hours to color and light and movement and narrative and backgrounds and drapery and clothing and all of the other things? So it really depends on your specific interests, and hopefully I can help discover those.
Yeah, going off of that, I'm going to pair some questions together. Would you say that the workshop is geared for beginners?
I think all levels. I mean, I teach at all levels.
No, great to know. So this one, someone wrote when we were asking about describing your style, someone wrote in the Q&A, lyrical style, like that.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I like that one. And has your expressionistic style influenced more traditional long pose figure drawing or painting? So when you do decide to do the long pose.
Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of the time when when I know that I have more time, I go for oil painting. And partly that's because I like the immediacy of the look of pastels. I like the way that they are not as forgiving as other materials. And I like the sort of the alla prima's direct application of color, not too much blending. You know, I could take this drawing further, but I like to overdo long poses. And by long pose, I mean multiple sittings, you know, 24, 36 hours, something I'm working on for a long time. And also where I can get a little bit more into detail with a brush. So I do tend to do longer poses with oil painting, but I absolutely will plan on longer poses at the Sicily workshop, because I think that it's important to teach through short poses and long poses. And also in the way that absolutely in my painting practice at home, has been very much changed and inspired by my pastel drawing techniques. And I prefer when I start much looser. I would also say that, you know, things I learned in painting inspired drawing with pastel. Things like when I was learning painting, I never painted on white. Why would I draw on white? You know, when I was painting, it was always on a toned surface, often a mid-tone, often a warm red, sometimes that kind of blue-gray. And it just made sense. Why would I be drawing on white paper when I never paint on a white surface? So, you know, not never, like it's sometimes it usually doesn't happen. So you know, some of the questions that I was asking myself about my drawing strategies were informed by things I knew about painting, and now the two kind of definitely inform one another back and forth. So
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, you know. There's a question that I can probably jump in on. So if we attend the session in Sicily, do we bring our own paper? I guess I can answer that one. You are welcome to, but you don't have to. So we will have all of the materials available for purchase on site. If you choose to bring your own paper, like one was the pad that Samantha showed earlier. Which one was it? It was the
I'm trying to find it.
that kind of like sanded paper that we were discussing earlier. So we'll have that available at the studio. Again, you're welcome to bring your own. Here, I can spotlight that for a second.
So these are the same. The red does not come in this set, in this pad. Does not come with the red, unfortunately. And I will probably be working more on this size, just for travel purposes. So that's why I've included it on the materials list,
Perfect.
among other types of paper.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're again welcome to bring your own. We'll have some at the studio. It's up to you as the participant. More love for your work in here. Your work is so amazing, so beautiful.
Here.
Live Bryland. Okay, one question. I noticed your different use of a black outline or lines for the figures. How do you decide how to use these? Why more in one drawing versus another? And does it correlate with time devoted to the picture?
I think that has to be answered in the studio. And yes, there are answers to where it is optimal, let's say, or where it is recommended, or where it is helpful in developing three-dimensionality, where to put a darker line and where not to. That changes. Because as I said, we don't have dark outlines around us, right? I mean, obviously contour is an important aspect of developing form. But I yeah, definitely have strategies for where to use it and where not to, and when to go dark, also when maybe it's better not to. The thing about pastels and the sanded paper does not erase. So once you put a dark outline, it's not there, it will be there. So that's another reason that I don't start with the dark outlines, or even a softer outline. In graphite drawing, we might start with the outline and then lighten it up with an eraser. Not possible with at least with this paper.
I'll have to, that's more of a studio in practice.
Yeah, I think that, and
Workshop.
it is different. There are strategies. I never like using the word rules, but I would say there are strategies for where to put your darker contours, but they change based on the pose, based on the light, based on the background, based on everything is dependent on the choices that you've already made in a drawing. So I don't know, I like to think of the contour as that's like sometimes my icing on the cake, is when I've established what I want to in a drawing and I'm down to the last 30 seconds of a pose, or when I want to give a little bit more completion to certain areas, that's when I get to break out the dark contour. You think, but I do think that it can be, like many other things in drawing, a way that you express your own personal visual language. Maybe like a lot of pastel artists I find don't, they're very soft and atmospheric and don't incorporate hard lines. But I think for me, for my love of drawing, right, that I like to keep a balance maybe between drawing and painting in a pastel, and it's totally valid to also keep your pastels soft and loose and atmospheric and more painterly. So there are answers. And there are multiple answers, but we'd have to get to that on a case by case basis, I think.
The way like you bring up drawing and painting, but then you also mentioned how you think sculpturally. And to me, like when I see the outlines, particularly in this one, it feels like it's in service of like sculpting and carving out like that body part, so that's just my initial like kind of feel for it. But there's more to talk about in the workshop. Just a couple more questions. If anyone has any last minute questions, I would say to drop them in the chat whenever you can, because as far as I see, we just have a couple more, one in the chat and then one in the Q&A.
Is he also a raised hand? I don't know if
that's actually the person whose question I'm about to answer next, so I can see if they would still like to. Let me remove the spotlight. So this person's question is, can you describe your approach to light and shadow? Do you use the light to focus the eye on a particular part of the drawing, like as your focal point? And I guess I'll allow this person to talk, who has their hand raised.
Sure, go ahead. If you want to elaborate.
Yeah, Michael, would you like to elaborate on that?
Oh, no, I just noticed that um, like each drawing has certain light patches. And is that to direct the eye, or is that to, how do you decide to use that particular part of the body to direct the focus?
Well, I guess I have this one behind me that I think
Yeah.
is an example of a good comparison, because in this case, the red is the light.
Ah,
The red
yeah.
is the light. This is this is the shadow, and there's sort of a backlit with the blue 5-minute drawing. And this one, obviously I'm using a different color paper, but the red is the shadow. And I use more of a, I mean, this is even paler than I am, right? So, a version of a flesh tone, obviously with more white pastel in it. So it just, as I say, there's not a formula that I have for composing light and shadow in terms of the colors that I choose to create light and shadow. But I do definitely like a high contrast and a dramatic lighting situation, especially for teaching. I think it helps to define or identify form and to show volume. And again, I think this is a good comparison drawing because I have no dark contours in this drawing. And I don't know if anybody wants to have a preference or say which is more effective. But so I don't know if that answered the question. So I'm always thinking in terms of light and shadow, the balance between light and shadow, and the background. And I would say this is another thing that I like about colored paper is that you already have a starting point. And making a decision about what paper to use is your first choice. And is that paper your shadow? Is the paper the light? Is the paper the background? And from that order of things, you start to build a drawing, or I start to build a drawing based on one decision follows another decision. It's never, these colors create light, these colors create shadow. No, any colors create light, any colors create shadow. It just depends on what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
there was a red spotlight on. we were using colored lights. So actually, there's a red spotlight on both. But in one it was the shadow, and one it was the light. So things change, and our perceptions change in every lighting situation. And I think that's also what happens in real life. So doing exercises like that in the studio, I think prepare us for our work at home, in our home studios, or do we love maybe natural light? Do we love like a candlelight glow, an orange? So flesh tones change no matter what what a person looks like, but in every lighting situation, in every atmosphere, the colors of skin tone, because skin tone is highly reflective, they change based on the light and also the situation, or if there's fabrics or other elements influencing the colors around. So it's always changing, and I love that. And that's, I think, another reason why I love drawing from life. And I don't know, maybe that's too much.
Never too much. Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael, for that question. I'm gonna mute you now. Michael, do you have any other?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Now we have one more question. Again, last minute, to drop them in the chat or the Q&A, but a question Q&A. I think we touched on this earlier, but will we be making our own paper in Sicily with you?
It's part of the plan. So yeah, I do have special formulas that I've mixed up and tested and tried. And of course there are lots of options available at art stores for coated paper, sanded paper, different grittiness of the paper. But yes, I think part of the process is partly to develop a love of your materials, you know, from the ground being the paper, from the ground up, you know, so already having a hand in the, like those choices, you know, that how is this going to affect your final artwork. And I use the Sennelier paper, as I said, because sometimes I don't have time to make all my own paper, and I do love it. And I always keep a selection of colors because I never really know what my plan is until I am seeing what I'm seeing.
I think like that's such an added bonus to the workshop that I was so excited to learn about. But just to clarify as well, like when you say make paper, you're talking about like preparing a surface.
Yes, preparation.
Starting like paper making from the ground up.
No, we won't be boiling.
Don't have that much time.
But I do, yeah, but pastel paper, pre-made, pre-sanded paper can get very expensive. So I think having the knowledge to make your own is a good skill.
Yes.
And you know, gets us involved also in the process, from, you know, what sort of texture we even like to work on the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so excited for that. That's such a bonus, like tangible, like practical skill you're giving all of us. Yeah, beyond Sicily. So I think that's it for the chat. We've been talking for a while. I can talk to you. I can do another hour. This was really exciting. Thank you so much for your time and taking the time to do this. We've already talked before. We've talked a lot about this webinar, but I feel like I got even more out of it from our previous conversations. So that's me telling everyone, you know, I think some of you might have worked with Samantha before. If you have not, I really recommend working with her. We would love to host you in Sicily. I'm incredibly excited for this workshop, and I really can't wait. So someone just in the chat, Fran, said, I enjoyed this so much. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to all of our participants. Thank you to everyone who attended, who asked questions, who participated. We really appreciate you taking the time. Just thank you, everyone.
So yeah, so please join us in Sicily. I can talk for hours, honestly. So I'm really trying to hold back. And I know that
Me too.
I know that I don't do a lot of verbal communication on Instagram, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little shy about the sound of my voice, but I thank you all for being here and getting to know me a little bit. And as I say, I love talking about drawing, about techniques of drawing. I love talking about and really getting into the nuts and bolts of figure drawing, as well as giving, I think I would say that I have give very personal and individual feedback, artist to artist, for, you know, meeting people where they're at in terms of their own practice and their skill level and what they are trying to achieve, really, because I don't think that we're all going for the same thing. I mean, if you're going for what I'm going for, then yes, please join me and I can help. But I think, you know, I do like to get a sense of what we as artists are trying to express and to communicate. And I hope that I have many strategies to get us there. in our personal development, you know, for whatever that is.
And that's so valuable too, like having an instructor who's willing to go down the rabbit hole with you, you know, like your own rabbit hole rather than this is how I do it and learn from me. So like that kind of individual mentoring is again something that's I'm excited to witness that, to see how you go about different approaches with everyone on their own journey. So it's going to be great and I'm very excited. So thank you, Samantha. Again, thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you in Sicily. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm going to drop my email, that's the word, in the chat. So it's Annie@artistretreats.com. If you have any questions about the workshop specifically, just more about what we do, who we are, more of like the day-to-day, like what is the itinerary like and what is travel like over there, you know, so I can help you like answer those more detailed questions. Samantha, where can folks see more of your work? Do you have it on Instagram?
Yes, if you have an Instagram account, it's my first and last name, Samantha Stover, all one word. And you have to unfortunately type in all the letters because I have been shadow banned. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the internet. You can edit that out. Yeah, but yes, please type in all the letters of my name and my icon should appear.
Yeah, and we post a lot with Samantha as well, so you can find us on Instagram at Sicily Artist Retreats. You can Sicily_artist_retreats. So you can find us there. Our website is artistretreats.com, and yeah, let's keep the conversation going, and we'll see you hopefully in Marsala in Sicily. Thanks again. So have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.